Then Daniel said to the king, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him. And also before you, O king, I have done no harm." Then the king was exceedingly glad, and commanded that Daniel be taken up out of the den, and no kind of harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. Verse 24. And the king commanded, and those men who had maliciously accused Daniel were brought and cast into the den of lions, they, their children, and their wives. And before they reached the bottom of the den, the lions overpowered them and broke all their bones in pieces. Now, that's quite extreme, you might say, quite tragic. It's quite extreme. The king throws not only these men who accused Daniel, but their families, their wives, their children, and they were crushed. They were not delivered from the power of the lions. The angel of the Lord was not with them. They did not acknowledge Daniel as a god. I believe actually they could be delivered, but they did not call to Daniel as God. They persecuted the servant of the living God. And in so doing, they're not just the thing is, here's what you have to understand. They're not just refusing Daniel, they're refusing his God. They refuse God, God can't protect them. So the angel that rescued Daniel was not with them. I'm going to show you guys something quickly in Proverbs. The Proverbs speaks of this, actually. It gives sort of a good summary of what's going on here, okay? I'm going to read you just a few cases of the Proverbs that show that the wicked will often fall into the pit, into the net that he himself laid, that he himself dug. Those who seek for innocent blood, those who lie in wait for blood, they don't realize they are lying in wait for their own blood. Those who counsel the king to wickedness, they must be taken away, so that the king's throne may be established in righteousness. Let's read quickly. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 8. The righteous is delivered from trouble, Daniel, and the wicked, his accusers, walks into it instead. And again, chapter 21, verse 18. The wicked is a ransom for the righteous, and the traitor for the upright. And again, chapter 25, verse 5. Take away the wicked from the presence of the king, and his throne will be established in righteousness. And again, chapter 29, verse 12, if a ruler listens to falsehood, all his officials will be wicked. It's a good point, actually. See, there's actually wisdom in that. Now, I'm not going to speak about just, slaying the wives and children, but, that was, in a sense, it was a very harsh judgment from the king. Very harsh judgment. But the righteousness of the king would then be established by the counsel of Daniel, not by their counsel. They counseled to foolishness, to wickedness. Daniel to uprightness. And listen to me. Listen, let me say this as well. Christians, understand. Listen. The Apostle Paul says something interesting in Thessalonians. He says, it is a righteous thing with God to recompense trouble to those who trouble you. Okay? Now, that's God's judgment. Listen, does God perform judgments in the earth? Yes. Now, primarily, listen to me, those of you who want to jump on this. Primarily speaking, judgment is restrained until the day of judgment, the day that God has appointed. He has appointed a day in which he will judge the world in righteousness by that man whom he has appointed. And he has given assurance of this to all people in that he has raised him from the dead. Right? So there's a day of judgment appointed. But listen to me. When people come against the people of God, does God deal with those people? Yes. Now, God is forbearing. God desires all to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. But for those who refuse, for those who will not turn, those who persevere, who are unwilling, whose necks are stiff, who are unwilling to turn to him, God will, because he has a covenant with his people, he will rescue his people out and he will let the wicked fall in his own devices. It's the judgment of God. It is the righteousness of God that he does this. Now, listen, don't pray for this. Listen to me. Let me tell you something, okay? Paul says something interesting. He says, do not avenge yourselves, but give place to wrath. Do not avenge yourselves, but give place to wrath. Now listen, this is why we have to pray for those who persecute us. This is why we have to give food to our enemy when he hungers, give him drink when he thirsts. For in so doing, the proverb says you will heap coals of fire on his head. Now the thing is, you have to pray for those who persecute you because God is on your side. Pray for mercy for them. Pray for them. Because listen to me. Listen. When you become a Christian, this is what we as Christians struggle with a lot. We are not willing to believe that the judgment of God is on our side. We're not willing to believe that God will fight for us. We're often not willing to believe that. Now, is God merciful? Yes. Does he forbear? Yes. Yes. Listen to me. Yes. But listen, are there times when after periods and periods and periods of long forbearance, of long periods of mercy, where God has withdrawn his hand? Does there come a point in time when, at times, listen, he will execute judgment on those who are persecuting his people, on those who persecute those in covenant with him? Yes, it happened to Herod in the New Testament, who slew James, the brother of John, who put Peter in prison, and who took glory to himself as though he were a god. The angels smote him. God showed him great forbearance, great mercy. He withheld. But God recompensed. Now listen, we don't recompense. Judgment is the Lord's. The proverb says in another place, wait on the Lord and he will save you. And also, by the way, don't rejoice when you see your enemy falls. Because the proverb says again, lest the Lord see you respond that way, lest the Lord see it and it displease him and he withdraw his hand from him. When the violence of the wicked returns on his own head, don't rejoice. It's not a pleasant thing. God doesn't desire this. He says by the prophet Ezekiel, I have no pleasure that the wicked should perish. No pleasure. But that he should turn from his way. I have no pleasure that the wicked should perish, God says. God isn't pleased by that, but he will do it to protect and to save his people, to save his sheep. But when we see that happen, because we will sometimes see it, if you have eyes to see, you will see it happen to people. It's not pleasant. We are not to rejoice at it. Lest the Lord see our response, see how, yes, he got what he deserved. That's not the reaction God wants. Okay? Vengeance is the Lord's. And understand, primarily speaking, there's a day of judgment appointed. I spent enough time on this. Let's go on. Arise, let us go hence. Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening to this message. I'm confident the word blessed you. Make sure to give a watch to other videos on my channel, like, share, and subscribe, and please leave me a comment about how this word impacted you. If you'd like to continue to receive these messages, consider supporting me via the donation link in the description box. Also, check out my dad Craig's YouTube page. You can find the link for that in the description box as well. Finally, I'd like to ask for your help in providing relief for families in Pakistan. We are partnering with local pastors in Karachi to supply food to people in need, many of whom have suffered severe economic hardship during their national lockdowns. To give, visit my Facebook fundraiser via the link in the description box, or send a gift through PayPal, also via the link in the description box. The Lord rewards your giving. Thank you in advance for your generosity. Grace and peace.